Can you hear me okay?
I can. Can you hear me?
Yeah, yeah. Awesome. Welcome to the show.
Thank you
What
for having me.
for sure. What's up, everyone? Welcome to another exciting episode of the Business Breakdown Podcast. Today we have a roofing industry powerhouse joining us, Jen Silver. Jen is the founder and CEO of Roofing Utah and a trailblazer for women in construction. With years of experience under her tool belt, she's breaking stereotypes and reshaping the landscape of a traditionally male dominated field. In this episode, we're tackling everything from the gender dynamics in construction to the nitty gritty of roofing and insurance. We're getting knowledge bombs based on navigating gender bias and sexism in the or navigating gender bias for sexism in the industry, crucial construction tips for homeowners, and the changing face of insurance policies and what that actually means for you. Whether you're a homeowner, an entrepreneur, or just curious about a badass female in blue collar, this episode's packed with true professional experience and house saving tips. A quick shout out to our community. Want to join a network of ambitious entrepreneurs, access exclusive resources, and get all your finance and business questions answered? Join our thriving Facebook group at facebook.com/group/finance for individuals and businesses. Your next big opportunity is here. All right, let's bring on this blue collar badass. Jen, welcome to the show. How you doing?
Thank you. I am quite well. How are you?
I'm doing pretty good. Doing pretty good. Glad to get you on here.
Well, thanks for
So
having me.
you're 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 a powerhouse in an industry that's dominated by males. How does that start?
Well, it started because I was a single mom and I wanted a flexible career. Outside sales made sense. Construction is stable. Um, I took a job actually bartending at a country club here in Ogden because contractors hang out at country clubs, right?
Yeah.
Or I thought they did. So I got hired by SRS, started on their front desk, ended up moving in, working for a roofing company as their sales manager, their general manager. Then they went out of business. I started my own roofing company just a little less than 5 years ago, and I've been going ever since.
That's awesome. And
Um,
where's your roofing company out of?
well, coincidentally, Roofing Utah is in Utah,
Yeah, all of Utah.
surprisingly enough.
Yeah,
Um, but we do service all of northern Utah. Occasionally, I don't know that my Idaho license is active right now, but we have done a few jobs in Idaho as well.
hmm
So
that's awesome.
that's
Sorry to
that's what we
interrupt.
do. And we are currently actually expanding out of roofing into siding as well, specifically James Hardy. So that's really exciting to have a few more products to offer. It's
Yeah, for sure.
definitely been an interesting year in the industry. And so having another offering, I think, makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, complimentary services,
Mhm.
complimentary products. That definitely goes hand in hand. That's awesome.
Yes. And a lot of people, I think, because interest rates are so high, rather than sell their home and move, most people are wanting to upgrade or remodel, right? Because
hmm
anytime you have a recession, money is going to shift. And there's people that are in their homes that don't want to go buy, but now have money that want to remodel. We're finding a lot of the roofing this year are luxury or premium roofs, right? Your standard homeowner economy grade type of roofing isn't what we're seeing a lot of this year, at least not in Utah from a retail standpoint.
Right. Whenever you're, I guess, kind of breaking down the seasonal aspect of it, can you explain that? How that works?
The seasonality of the business or the
Uh,
season, what did
go
you mean by that?
the season of changing whenever it goes from more residential
Mm,
stuff that's more low end.
yep. So I think, first of all, I think we've known this was going to happen eventually, right? That roofing is changing, and it's been changing significantly over the last few years. And one of the reasons that I started speaking more in the industry was to hope to help educate people to understand retail work, right? How to bid retail work. Because I do believe that the days of the insurance proceeds roof completely, like only your deductible straight across the board, I think those days are going to be numbered and kind of few and far between. Homeowners really need to be paying a lot more attention to the letters that they're getting from their carriers. Um, I probably have done 6 or 7 just inspections this year where an insurance company has sent a letter to the homeowner saying, we're going to drop you if you don't get your roof replaced. And I'm like, this roof doesn't need to be replaced, right? But they're using drone images and flying over, and they don't always know. And so, coupled with policy changes, now Texas is a big one, right? A lot of what happens in Texas and Florida has a tendency to trickle out to the rest of the country. And so paying attention to those 2 states is really important for people. But Texas is moved to a 2% deductible pretty much across the board. You have some carriers that with, having, I don't know why I'm not a multi-policy discount. Is that what it's called? Multiple policies? I think it is. It's a multi-policy discount. So if your home, auto, and everything is bundled, then you might be at 1% or 1.5%. Mm-hmm. But it's 1% or 1.5% of the value of your property, right? So they're using property tax records to determine the current value of your property. And that's a lot more than a lot of people are prepared to spend.
Right.
I've seen roof and hail or roof exclusions for hail and wind on policies that I think people don't know are in there. I've seen named storms, so meaning your roof is only going to be covered or the exterior of your home is only going to be covered if the storm gets named. And most windstorms and hailstorms are not named. And so coverage is shifting. Do you know how much you would get if your home burned down today? No. I would say 90+% of people don't. And that's a big deal. And I ask you that, and I ask people that in general, because I think we downplay the importance of our homeowners insurance. And it's kind of out of sight, out of mind, right? Like we pay it in our escrow, so we don't even necessarily think about it. But it's probably the most important insurance that you have. Mm-hmm. If your house burns down and all you have is enough to pay off your mortgage, which most of the time that's similar to what you're covered for, because when people buy homes, they have an agent that goes through and puts all their insurance together so that they can qualify for DTI, and their coverage isn't always what they think it is. So when you look at all of those different things and how much people don't know, it makes it really easy for these policy changes to happen without any awareness. Oftentimes we get a letter in the mail from our insurance company, and maybe people don't even realize that is their insurance company, and they think somebody's soliciting them. There's quite a few homeowners where we've asked, who's your carrier? I'm not sure. Okay. Right? Like if you don't even know who your carrier is, how could you possibly know what your coverage is? And how would you even know how to find your coverage?
Right.
I mean, you laugh because in Texas, it's common. You guys get so many storms that homeowners have to be more aware. But in a lot of the rest of the country where, take Utah, for example, we get hail and we get lots of wind. Mm-hmm. Not hail like Colorado or Texas hail, right? We get little hail. But a lot of people have no idea what their deductible is, what type of coverage they have, and like I said before, even maybe who their carrier is.
Yeah. So that's I would say for most people who have to pay for insurance, they don't even know what they're paying for. Because I see it on my end. It's completely unrelated to what you're talking about, but it's insurance, and people just don't like insurance.
They think they don't, right? The thing about insurance is we have a marketing message that goes out, right? Like a good neighbor, you're in good hands, all of the little things. And in a lot of ways, that's true in an emergency, right? When your home burns down, or if there was a tornado. Now, even still, those storms, the amount of turmoil, displacement, emotional trauma, all of the things that people go through, the insurance company is not necessarily there for all of those things, right? They're not there to make things easier per se. They're supposed to be there just to make sure that you get the money back that you needed to survive, so to speak, right?
Right.
And we don't look at insurance companies like they're risk management, because that's really all they are, is risk management. We look at them like they're supposed to love us and care for us and be kind and do whatever we want. And it is the message that is sent out. So it isn't necessarily consumers' fault that that is. But you have to understand they're
Agreed.
literally there, just like for if your car was to wreck, right? You wreck your car, your insurance company is not like rushing around doing all kinds of nice things, but they're supposed to fix your car. Same thing with your home. They're supposed to restore it to pre-loss condition. The problem is we can look at the car industry. Have you ever had a auto body shop walk up to you in the grocery store and say, hey, you got a dent in your fender. I can fix that for you for free. Just all you have to pay is your deductible. No, right? People,
No.
the only industry that solicits the business that I know of is roofing. Which is, I understand a lot of people, homeowners don't understand the effects that hail and wind can have on your roof, right? And what happens if you miss that statute of limitations to file a claim, and how much it can actually reduce the life expectancy of your roof, especially hail. People don't know. And so, roofers trying to educate people. Then you get the bad actors in the game, right, that are stealing from people or, inflating claims or doing various things. And then you have homeowners that are using insurance companies as their homeowner savings plan, waiting for a storm to happen instead of just repairing their roof as they should. And so it's not a dichotomy, because there's three of us. I don't know if trichotomy is even a word, but you've got these three moving parts, all of which have guilt, right? All of which have contributed to the problem. But now it's such a problem, it's almost like, how do we find a solution again, right? Because you'd have to regulate all three groups in order to find a solution. Contractors don't want to be regulated, right? Like, that's not a thing. Homeowners don't want to be regulated because we're Americans and we want the right to choose what we do with our money. And insurance companies don't want to be regulated. And frankly, they have the pocketbooks that they don't really need to, right? They contribute heavily to campaigns. They are very politically active. And so it makes it really challenging when you look at that and trying to have accountability in all those three areas where really none of the groups as a whole probably want accountability. So it's a challenge for sure.
Where do you think accountability and that should be targeted first? Because bringing in the insurance companies is interesting, and their pockets are definitely the deepest around. So it's definitely hard to combat that.
Homeowners, to be honest with you. So if I could wave Jen's wand, right? Because I think a lot about this and what is the solution.
Hmm.
To me, we've lost sight of saving, right? We want to keep up with the Joneses. I think it's like less than 2% of Americans or 10% of Americans have enough money to live for a month in savings. Heaven forbid something happen. It's pretty shocking how little people save. I would look at something similar to PMI. Okay. So when a homeowner is in a home, if they are at a certain percent loan to value, and maybe it's 70 because they need that 10% gap to make sure that they stay under 80% if they had to borrow against their home. I don't know that magic number.
Right.
But I would have a mandatory HSA account. So instead of health savings account, it would be a home savings account. I would make it so that it was also non-taxed, interest bearing. The interest is split between whomever houses these home savings accounts, which I haven't figured that part out yet, right? But whomever houses it and the homeowner themselves, and they can continue to build it. And they submit receipts just like anything else for homeowner related expenses, whether it's a roof, whether it's something, maybe it's a water heater, just little things that go out in your home that you're not planning for. And then once you've done that, once you can continue to transfer it from home to home, you can use it as a down payment on another home. Once you're at a certain loan to value, and it forces people to start to think about those expenses differently. I would also, at the time of closing, I would have a actual packet that goes through which homeowner related expenses are expected in this home. The best guesstimate on what that price would be and approximately when those things would need to be done. And having homeowners initial next to that when they're signing their closing documents, because I think it's hard to remember all of that, right? People, they don't even necessarily think about it when they're buying a home. It's such an emotional thing. They're so excited. They're not looking at, they rely on their home inspection, which a lot of home inspectors don't even get up on the roof. So they're relying on a home inspection to tell them that everything's going to be okay. But the home inspection is really just making sure that it's livable, right? That there's no glaring things sticking out. And then it becomes kind of more of a, oh shit, my water heater went out, or my AC unit is 15 years old, or, my siding is falling off because it's vinyl and it's 15 or 12 years, right? Like all of those things, I think educating people, forcing people back into savings. And I hate that it has to be a forced savings plan, but I don't think there's another avenue right now. And I think making it non-taxed helps, right? And even if there's capital gains tax that is paid on it at some point, and I don't know if that's when you transfer it to use it as a down payment or at what point that looks like, I don't know. I'm still trying to kind of navigate all of those details, but that would be where I would start.
That's a pretty good start. You've definitely given that a lot of thought.
I have a lot.
Yeah. Have you thought about creating it? Wouldn't that technically go through the banks? And also,
Well,
what
could
cap?
it could go through the banks, right? I don't know enough about a health savings account to know who manages that.
Hmm.
I would probably, because medical insurance is offered through work and employment, it makes health savings accounts
Right.
easier, right? So it would have to be a post-tax contribution that you would file with your taxes at the end of the year and then get all of that tax money back, right? Does that make sense?
Hmm.
Because I don't think there's any way to pull pre-taxed funds and go directly into that, but you could have a certified, letter that comes out that shows this is how much you contributed this year, and then it goes back into your taxes and you get a credit for the taxes that you paid on them.
Do you think there should be a limit based on how many houses or the
Well, I
value of
don't
the
think you should be
houses?
able to go over a certain percentage of loan to value, right? I think
Yeah.
once you're over 70% loan to value, you're done. Like it's no longer a program for you because
Yeah.
you have the equity in your home, right? This is really more for starter and to
Hmm.
get people in the habit early on in their home buying to start to think about that and to start to build a savings plan of some kind, whether it's equity in their home or an actual HSA, but somewhere that will transition and they wouldn't need that anymore. And I wouldn't allow people to just contribute to that blindly.
Yeah. I'm wondering. I'm wondering who would hold that. I would think the banks, because they would be holding the lien for the most part.
I
Um,
thought about that, like who holds that. The problem with having anybody that has current interest in the home, I think it will get more complicated. I actually think it needs to be a neutral third party that's all they do, right? Is just manage these accounts and make sure that if there's interest, if they're investing it kind of like an IRA, if that's the route it goes, then it needs to have a base amount that is always left in there that they can't invest for returns for people, or that interest just needs to be split between whomever is housing it and the homeowner. And I don't know, but I think it actually has to be a neutral third party.
Yeah, that's awesome. I like it.
I just got to figure it all out,
I
right?
know
And
you
then
got to push it forward, whatever
I'm gonna
whatever it
try.
takes.
I'm gonna try here in Utah first to get. Utah's pretty good about things like that and savings plans. And I mean, I don't know, again, because you're forcing consumers to save, right, for something that they don't. Nobody likes to be told what to do with their money. But then I think, how is it any different than PMI? Like, nobody's forcing you to be a homeowner, right?
Yep.
Like, that is a choice. So here are the rules that go along with being a homeowner. And most people have accepted the rule of private mortgage insurance if you're under a certain loan to value, right? 80% in most cases. So why could we not accept that you have a home savings plan if you're under 70% loan to value, right? Why would that not make sense? It makes sense. The mortgage industry should love it,
Yep.
right? The insurance industry should love it. Homeowners should actually love it too once they get into the habit of it, because that stress and that chaos around what do I do because my water heater's out, or how am I going to solve this, or where am I going to borrow money, or can I call my parents and see if they have 10 grand in the bank for me, right? Like, those conversations will start to dissipate and people will have more comfort and security and peace of mind. But the initial maybe 4 or 5 years of it going, they might not like it because they're going to have to learn to live a little bit differently with a little bit different money.
Yeah. Well, I mean, even on the auto side, auto insurance is required. I mean, that doesn't mean that every single person has it, but it is technically against the law.
Correct. At least liability only, right?
Yep.
You get to a certain place and you have it would be probably the mortgage company that would have to require it, just like the auto loan lender requires that you have private mortgage, or that you have full coverage should you have a loan on it, because you need to be able to pay your loan off. And that's how your homeowner's insurance works too, right? You have enough,
Right.
you're forced to have homeowner's insurance because you have to be able to pay the loan off in the event that there's something happens to your home. So yeah, if you have any ideas around that whole thing, let me know, because I am definitely open to exploring it. I think a lot of it also comes down to education.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we have taken a lot of life skill education out of schools. Kids they don't know the same things that they knew, you know, when I was growing up, which I'm a grandma, so it's been a minute, right? I graduated from high school in the 90s before cell phones. Like, I had a pager. It was really cool. And I had to pull over with my pager at a payphone and call my parents when they would page me, right? Like, it was just a different world.
Yeah, yeah, for sure.
But like, my kids don't know how to read a map. You know, I gave them a map last year for a road trip and they looked at me like I was crazy, and they did a great job. But, you know, I think people underestimate the power of being able to still operate in life and function without all of the luxuries, and a lot of the education around the practical education around homeowner expenses. You know, they still kind of have shop, but it's not exactly the same, right? And inside of shop and home ec and those classes, it's called like college and career prep or something similar to that. It's real fast, and they're not learning about taxes. They're not learning about interest. They're not learning about insurance. And then there's nobody really teaching those things. So I think we've got to get back to educating people, whether it's a first-time home buying class, right? You have to take a class when you get divorced. You have to take a class when you do a lot of other things. Why not take a class when you buy a home first time, right? And teach people these things that matter. As far as maintenance, some people don't even know how to change their filters, right? Or where they're located, or how to relight the pilot on their hot water heater, or like, there's so many things
Or shut
that,
their water off in the event of an emergency.
yeah, right? Like, little tiny things that you don't want to learn by default because it sucks. right?
Yeah. Right.
It's not fun if you don't turn the water off and then you're trying to change something, right? It's a huge mess. And so um, there's just different things that I think we could do a better job of to help things go right. Education being a huge key factor, which is one of the reasons I'm passionate about
Yeah.
education.
And
So
I do think the education piece should be on the front end also, because after they get the home, they're not going to want to take the class anymore because they just got the home. So it's like carrot before the stick,
it's like required for signing, just like you're required to take a divorce class in a lot of states, or you're required to take this, or you're
or a
required.
driving test before you
Yeah,
get the
like
car.
it's all about the privileges, right? I am not by any means around big government, right? I'm not a big government fan. I don't think that the government needs to be involved in all aspects of our life. And that's probably one of the reasons I've struggled with this a little bit. Like, is this contradictory to how I truly feel? And I look at it and I'm like, no, because this isn't the government necessarily mandating something. This is a privilege that people have, and they need to understand how to navigate that privilege better so that they can be successful and it doesn't do things that affects other consumers negatively, like the situation that we're in right now, nationally with homeowners insurance.
Yeah. With with Texas, you said Florida was doing the 2%
No,
also?
I don't know that Florida. I'm just saying, no, Florida is a whole different, like, altogether. But I'm just saying, oftentimes, from a homeowner standpoint, if you want to know kind of where the country could be going, pay
Mhm.
attention to what's happening in Texas and Florida,
Okay.
because that's
Okay.
what all the other states watch, right? And
Mhm.
now, it doesn't mean they're going to adopt it exactly. It doesn't mean it will look the same, but there will probably be different things that get pulled from the legislation of those particular states that you'll start to see trickle throughout the country, or the policies written in those particular states in this case.
Yeah. It's all it's definitely moving and kind of navigating everything as it's evolving, I'm sure is definitely tough, but that's good that you're able to see what happens before it happens and you at least have your pulse on it. Um, especially if you create create that class.
If you think,
License to own a home, HSA.
right, like, I think that makes sense. If you think about how much the world has changed in the last 10 or 15 years, right, with technology, I mean, just cell phones, personal, like, how much people are no longer really involved with other people. Things are being done virtually all the time. Um, Life evolves. So roofing is going to evolve as well. Yes, maybe it hasn't evolved quickly in the past, but it will. And you have to be abreast of changes that are going on. You have to know your market. You have to understand the economy. Um, and navigating insurance is just another piece and layer in that. So
Yeah, for sure. Um, kind of backing up, I know we dove into the insurance stuff and stuff with the roofing industry pretty quickly. I want to hear more about how you got into it because not many people, don't get me wrong, a lot of people are trying to get into the roofing industry, but not a lot of people are successful. And especially whenever they have kind of odds stacked against them. So it's interesting to see how people prevail through different experiences and different um, life situations.
it's funny that you say odds stacked against you, because I think being a woman in the roofing industry is nothing but a benefit,
Hmm.
right? Now, with that being said, yes, you have to understand the product. You have to have probably even more knowledge than a guy would. Okay, and this is one of those interesting things in society that people think is sexism, right? Because they're going to question me more on my roofing knowledge than they would probably question you if you were to show up at a job. Okay, I don't look at that as sexism,
Hmm.
and I don't think it is. It's actually gender bias. Okay, they're not saying you can't be a roofer because you're a girl, right? They're not doing any of those things, or you can't roofers can't have a period, so there's no way you can be a girl, so you can't do it, right? Can't be on a like those are sexist types of comments. Having an expectation that a woman doesn't have construction knowledge is gender bias. The way I explain it is, okay, as a woman, I'm raised typically, even still, modern families, we raise girls with baby dolls and Barbies and things like that. And we raise boys with, hammers and construction sets and Tonka
Hot
trucks
Wheels,
and
Legos.
right Legos and all of those things. Now I give it to Lego because they have the whole pink set now, right? Which I think is
Mhm.
awesome. But we do that, and we don't think about because that is a traditional gender role, right?
Mhm.
So when a girl grows up and goes into construction, subconsciously you're going, well, she never played with, how could she know? She wasn't in the garage with her dad. She wasn't building things. She was playing with dolls and she is cooking. And now, are all these thoughts going through your brain? No, right? This is subconscious programming.
Right.
But you think that way, and then it's like, so how did you get into roofing? Okay, and what about the ventilation? And you're right, and people start to ask more questions. But as a woman, once they realize that you understand and you know what you're talking about, life becomes much easier. People naturally trust women more, right? Women are more inclined to build relationship. And so there's a softness in the sale that doesn't always exist with men. I'm not saying all men and I'm not saying all women, right? I'm generalizing and I understand that. I'm gender biasing here.
Right.
Right? Because that's what we do as a society. Uh, but it really becomes more of an anomaly and a shock and an almost infatuation with the knowledge of how did you get there, how did you learn all of these things, right? I grew up playing with baby dolls. I have 4 kids. I'm a great cook. I can do a lot of different things, but it doesn't mean I couldn't learn construction along the way, right? It isn't really any different than me learning nursing. But nursing is a career that people would have expected me to go into. Nursing can be physical, right?
Yeah,
They're moving
absolutely.
patients, they're lifting people, they're doing different things. Yes, construction is physical. Do I carry bundles of shingles up a ladder? No, I pay people to do that because I frankly am not strong enough. I could be if I went to the gym and lifted and wanted to do all of that, but I don't, right?
Mhm.
Can I walk a roof and identify problems? Can I fix a leak? Can I determine a leak? Yes, absolutely. All of those things I can do, and I do really well. So it's just, to me, it's more of an advantage than it is anything else. And I have 3 daughters, and I wanted them to know that they could do anything they wanted to do, right? And their only restriction is themselves. And that's true of anybody, right? The biggest hurdle that we have in life is our own negative self beliefs or self limiting beliefs. It isn't
Yep.
really anything external, it's ourself. And then not fixating, that's a new word, fixating, not fixating on being a victim, because we're
Yeah.
not always victims. Like, people, when they're asking you more questions than they ask the guy, is not that they think you can't know it. They're just surprised that you do. If you ask me to hold my baby, I would ask you, have you ever held a newborn? Do you know how to hold a newborn? Let me show you how to hold their head, right? Are you going
Mhm.
to think I'm being sexist?
No.
Probably not, right? Like, it's a pretty normal thing. You didn't grow up playing with baby dolls. Now, in my head, am I going, he didn't grow up playing with baby dolls. He doesn't know how. No, I'm just like, oh God, it's a guy. Does he know how to hold a baby? Same thing. Oh God, it's a girl. Does she know how to hold a hammer? Not any different. Same conversation. We just got
Yeah,
to get over it and push through it.
for sure. Is there, I guess, is there a time when I guess whenever you show up to a lot of jobs and stuff like that, they already understand who you are and where you came from for the most part nowadays. Um, do you still come across a lot of issues? Because I know that you've made a name for yourself already.
So it's interesting because I don't always know who knows me and who doesn't know me, especially here in Utah, right? It's a little bit different because a lot of the things that I've done and built my name around is insurance work and, inside of the roofing community. So, yes, I would say a lot of the roofing contractors here know me, but do all the GCs, if I'm bidding for a GC, or do homeowners know me? No, not necessarily,
Gotcha.
right? So it's a little bit different because you still get out there and you're still talking to people and they're still like, you're still a girl in roofing, right? Now, there are homeowners that I find that have gone on and, oh, I went to your website and then I clicked on your stuff and then, oh my gosh, I started watching your podcasts and I'm like, oh, okay, this is awkward because I actually that to me is way more uncomfortable than them questioning me on my knowledge because I never know what to say to any of that. Like I didn't ever try to start speaking, right? It wasn't ever a goal of mine. I know a lot of people have goals to influence and speak and do all of that. I didn't. It just organically happened. And so it's weird when, frankly, I mean, I'm really proud of it,
That's not a
right?
bad thing. That's not a bad thing.
It's a really cool thing to have done, right? And
Yeah.
I'm grateful for the opportunity. Um, but the whole influencing and people feeling like they know you by watching you on Facebook, it's just different.
Yep.
Um, I recently got engaged, which I know I told you yesterday, I
I guess
believe.
we're saying that out loud.
Yeah, that's okay. Like,
Okay. Okay. Congrats.
but I didn't
Congrats
go
again.
do like this big public announcement on it either, right? Like,
Mhm.
I don't have to share every part of my life publicly for reasons like that, right? Like it just becomes so bizarre when you're walking in a grocery store or you're doing something and somebody says, oh, are you Jen? And it's like, yeah, I'm just trying to help people out. Like, I don't sing. Well, I do sing, but not famous, right? Like, I'm not an actress, I'm not on big screen. Like, I'm just helping people learn how to run a business and understand their numbers. And yeah, so it's an interesting thing.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. I would say that's definitely a lot more advantage than a disadvantage, with that, but I'm sure it's definitely weird. Um, yeah, just getting attention when you didn't even know it was coming. Sometimes it's good, sometimes it's bad news. It's a wild card. That's why it's a little scary. So you're not
Mhm.
sure, and there's crazy people out there. So, with
I just
your
hope more young girls, right,
mhm,
realize that there are lots of different ways that they can do life. My niece decided to become a mechanic, and she is a badass mechanic. She finished second in the state of Missouri. She got a full ride scholarship to a trade school. Uh,
dang,
and
that's
I
cool.
love that, right? Like,
Yep.
I think it's the coolest thing ever. And she came up to me not that long ago and she was asking me about dating, right? Because she was dating a guy that was also a mechanic and it caused them problems. And I said, there are not a lot, there's even less women mechanics than there are women in construction. And if you are really good at it and you're doing the same thing, you're going to be noticed more. And that could hurt someone's ego, for lack of a better word,
I was
right?
gonna say ego. Yep.
Yeah, I was like, I'm trying not to say ego, but I really can't think of
No,
another word. Right,
it's
but it,
definitely
it
ego.
can. And I said, so find somebody that's in a different craft. Same, like still trade motivated, still driven for their trade, still passionate about their trade, but that their craft is different than yours so that you guys can both, you know, build each other up and celebrate each other's wins within their own craft and not compete. And it had never really occurred to me, probably because I'm so much older and men are also older, right? Because people age and they realize those things don't matter as much. But at 19 or 20, it's a very different ball game, right? It never even occurred to me. And so I think there are challenges that I maybe hadn't faced that younger women going into a trade and then still dating and doing all of those things, and keeping their femininity and keeping their career separate from that of their, future spouse, I think is critical.
Yeah. No, absolutely. I think she should find a car salesman, something complimentary. Just keep.
I told her, like, even like a carpenter, or someone who does really great woodworking, or something that is a trade that requires skill and expertise would be great. I go, you could even do somebody who does body work instead of mechanic,
Mhm.
right? Like, if you want to stay
That's
within
good.
art, but just not the exact same thing.
Yep.
At least not at this point in your life. And she thought that was good advice. So who knows if it was or not, but that was how I felt about it.
Yeah, that's a good, demographic targeting. Well, I'm sure she'll work on it.
But it's awesome to see more young people going into the trades. It's awesome to see what the NRCA is doing specifically around roofing. We've got a CTE school here that's writing some curriculum for roofing, which is awesome, inside of high school. Um, and so that's what I really love, is talking to the kids and helping them understand that college isn't the only way to go, and it doesn't mean that you don't have worth if you don't go to college. It is an avenue, and it's a great avenue for people that are going into a career that requires a college degree, but not as many these days do as people think they do.
Yep. And
So,
there's, definitely a lot of ways to make money without a degree.
oh, for
Um,
sure. Sometimes more.
yeah, I was one of the people that got my degree very late in life. I mean, late in my journey comparative to now.
Mhm.
But I had all my experience first, and just going back to really solidify the knowledge is what it felt like, which wasn't a bad thing. It was more of a personal vendetta that I had against formal schooling, and that's why I wanted to go back and get it taken care of. But um, yeah, it's not necessary. And I talked to a lot of people because I did it backwards. I got my experience and then my schooling. Usually people get schooling and then their experience. So um, there's a lot of different ways to do it. And honestly, I think getting your experience first might be the way to go, so you don't get into something and not like it. You have hands-on experience. College was much easier, getting the experience first because
Mhm.
I was not a smart kiddo in high school, but I obviously didn't take it as serious. But once I went to college later, everything was just a lot easier. I had a much higher GPA than I did in high school, so it's just, kind of what it turns
It's a
into.
maturity, right? And
Mhm.
an appreciation. I did not go to college. Now, over the in the last year, has been the only time in my life I've regretted not going to college, but really just because I want to get a law degree and I don't want to go do 4 years first. I just want to go straight to law school, um, to help write some of these bills and help be able to do make some a difference in some of those areas, because I don't have that knowledge, right?
Yeah,
But in order to now, I can go to law school without a bachelor's. I think I can, in some states, I can even pass the bar without a bachelor's. It's getting a law school to allow you to go there without a bachelor's. And so then I was like, well, maybe I could find an honorary bachelor's. Because I mean, I'm 44. If I was to go and get a bachelor's now, I probably wouldn't be done until 50 by the time I'm actually, maybe sooner, but 47, and then law school, and then it's 50. And I'm like, man, I'd rather be out of everything by
there
50.
there's programs. So whenever I went back to school, I got my 4-year degree in under 2 years. I was a double and triple full-time student. I'm not saying it's easy, I'm saying it's doable because I was also working 80 hours a week. Um, so
My challenge is my kids too, right?
yeah,
And
yeah.
even though they're older, that in itself is a lot. Running kids back and forth to dances and games and various things. And so I don't know, but it literally, that's the only time I've ever regretted not going to college. Other than that, the skills that I got through my career are, I think, far exceed what a college education could have taught me. Um,
Agreed.
Now, does everybody have great bosses all the time? No, of course not. I had terrible bosses at times too, and they taught me how I didn't want to be, right? And you take
Ooh, that's a big one.
right, and some of those lessons are even better than some of the great bosses. But
Yeah.
you look at those situations and you take bits and pieces and you kind of put it all together to mold you into the career person that you're going to become, and you continue to build and grow on that. So, but if I wanted to be an engineer or if I wanted to be a teacher or a doctor, then college is required. And I get that. And I just think we need to stop. Every kid doesn't need to go to college. These are the jobs that need you to go to college, and these are the jobs that don't need you to go to college, right? You can choose which one you would rather do.
Right. Right. Whenever, man, is there a there's some jobs in construction that require a bachelor's or maybe a certificate. Definitely some safety stuff here and there. The project management's one that I immediately thought about because project management is huge in construction compared to, I mean, don't get me wrong, it's big in the corporate world, and that's where I came from. But project management is just much bigger in construction, and it's a different style too. Um, it's kind of the
But
first
you
thing I
can do
thought of.
certifications, right? I'm
Hmm.
not saying education isn't required.
Oh, for
There
sure.
are definitely different types of education that is required for different careers. I mean, ultrasound you need a certification for, but you don't necessarily need a 4-year degree in
Hmm.
radiology, right? Same thing with project management. You probably don't need a 4-year construction management degree, but you do need a certification in project management. You do need to understand the software and all of the different things that are utilized inside of that. So,
Hmm.
education, I'm very pro. I'm
Yep.
just not pro everybody thinking they have to go to a 4-year university to get it.
Yeah, for sure.
So,
And
yeah,
with certain certifications, you have to have a certain amount of hours put in before you actually retrieve it, which I actually like a lot of those programs.
and
I
Utah
think
has some great. I mean, they have a lot of concurrent enrollment for trades in high school, and as long as you're passing your
yep,
classes, I mean, they have cosmetology, they have electrician, electrical, plumbing,
welding, yep,
all of those things that the kids can mechanics take and still earn high school credits, but graduate and be at a place where they can hold a job um, and be ahead in life. So I think that that is an awesome thing that I know Utah does.
yeah. They definitely do that down in Texas. That's been around for a while. I forgot what it's called. I'm sure it's called something different from from school district to school district.
Yeah,
But the trades, they even allow you to leave like early from school to go to whatever your trade is, or they'll allow you to leave early to go to work. So it's the programs are definitely there for trades coming straight out of high school, and I think a lot of that has really good experience that a lot of kids coming out of high school should do. It definitely teaches a lot of responsibility. It definitely gives a lot of accountability as well.
yeah,
Um, the level of accountability that you you're kind of faced with when you come out of high school. What job am I going to get? What am I going to do? Who am I going to surround myself with? Am I still going to be friends with these people? My friends are leaving for college, what have you. Going immediately into a trade school and being around people that you might even be working with in the future and creating that network. I think that's a pretty big opportunity.
I agree 100%. Having a plan, that's what every kid needs is a plan. And it doesn't start in high school, it starts in middle school, right? Because which is why people view the trades as the path for the screw ups because they're not starting the conversation early enough so that middle schoolers can plan that way, right? And in middle school, now I'm starting to see it shift a little bit, but kids are still planning to go to college, right? That's the big pump in middle school. And then they get to high school and they're like, okay, I'm kind of over all this. Maybe I don't want to go to college. And it's a last minute detour instead of a clear path. And I think that's one of the things that we need to do a better job of inside of public education is not ostracizing it and having it be an acceptable option that they can choose from at 11 when the other kids are choosing they want to go to college.
Yeah.
So,
most of the time, a lot of those trade schools still end up making as much of the people who went to college, and
if not more.
a lot better off,
Hmm. I
a lot
100%
better off.
agree with you. Absolutely.
Um, so tell us about the next steps for roofing Utah. What's on the plate? What are you doing in the future here soon? Because I know that you're always making pretty big moves. We've talked just a couple of times, but I know that you're always a handful of steps ahead, um, quite a few steps ahead.
I try. Right now, we are focusing, we're doing a lot of metal roofs this year. Like I said, people that are buying retail aren't moving. So they're not necessarily moving into a new home, but they're upgrading their existing home. And metal always seems like the best solution for people. Um, so I spend a lot of time educating people on what it looks like to actually transition into a different type of a roof. Reminding them